So if you're struggling with your nutrition and your workouts, you can't seem to stay motivated no matter what you do. You try to summon all the willpower that you can. And despite your best intentions, you are inconsistent at best. You have times where you stick with it for a bit and then you fall back into old habits. You start skipping workouts, you start blowing your diet, and then you start blaming yourself, thinking that the problem is that you need more motivation, you need more willpower, you need discipline, and maybe you blame yourself thinking that you're just being lazy. And if that is you, I can tell you, I went through this very same thing. I had many clients over 20 years that I worked as a fitness trainer and a coach who went through the very same thing. And I'm going to invite you to consider a different thing, that maybe it's not that you're lazy. Maybe what you're dealing with is nervous system fatigue. I like to use an analogy that I call a threat bucket. And it just means that there's a lot of different inputs coming in to your brain and your nervous system. Our brain and nervous system is processing information that comes in through our senses all the time, so much of it. And when it gets to a point where there's all these inputs that come in, so we have different types of stresses that happen, from work-related stress or relationship type stress or financial type stresses that come. We have stress from poor sleep. Maybe we're not sleeping enough. Maybe we are just working too much, too many hours, too hard. We have poor energy, or we have poor food choices that come in. There's all these different ways that add to what I call the threat bucket. And the more we fill up that threat bucket, the more our brain is interpreting that our survival is in jeopardy. And so our brain and nervous system kind of downshift into protection mode, because our brain is always trying to keep us safe. And when there's all these perceived threats that are coming in, the brain just doesn't know how to deal with it all. Kind of is just too much for it to deal with. And so as a result, it downshifts into kind of a survival mode. It's kind of like the survival part of our brain becomes overactive. And so what happens is we suffer from things like low energy. We suffer from things like we lose our motivation. We also struggle with sleep. We make poor food choices. We get increased cravings for junk foods. And it gets to the point where we can't control them at times. We can have increased sensitivity to pain. So if you ever notice during times of high stress where those old kind of aches and pains start to come back out of nowhere and you don't really know why, or you all of a sudden have these uncontrollable food cravings and you don't know why, and or maybe you have like episodes of food binges that even though you know you're not supposed to eat this stuff, again, you can't seem to control it and you don't know why. It's not enough to just know what we need to do. The problem is that we can't seem to do the things that we know we need to do, at least not consistently. And this, a lot of times, is what's going on. We get to a point where our sympathetic nervous system is on overload, increases the threat perception in the brain, and then the brain just says, forget about your goals. I don't care about trying to lose weight. I don't care about trying to get fit. I don't care about trying to get in shape. I'm perceiving this danger, this threat that's present, and I need to get you to safety, because the brain is always trying to keep us safe. And so the craziest thing about it is the brain seeks familiarity, things that are familiar, things that we know. Because when things are familiar and we know things, we can predict our environment better. And when we can predict things better, we respond better. And that's how the brain is wired. So we will seek out things like comfort foods, and we'll eat things that we're not supposed to eat, and we'll skip working out in an effort for the brain at least, is trying to reduce the threat and keep us safe. So that's why a lot of times, like, we lose motivation, we lose our energy, we do things that we know we're not supposed to do, we blow our workout. It's not that we don't want our goals. We do want these goals bad enough, but we're dealing with a threat perception issue, not a laziness issue. We kind of have to turn down the dial a little bit on the nervous system when it's overstimulated. So some of the things that we can do are things like wearing a hat. So sometimes it's just like wearing a hat to help block out more light, because sometimes there's just too much light coming in, especially if we stare at like a computer screen or a phone all day. So that's one thing. Blue light blocking glasses are another thing that can work well. Pinhole glasses, things like that, that help to inhibit that sympathetic nervous system a bit. We can also do things like breathing drills. Breathing drills can work wonders to help calm down the sympathetic nervous system and to help activate the parasympathetic nervous system. We can do things like visual drills, like eye cupping. I've talked about this before. Eye cupping is a great way to help decrease all of the stimulus that comes in, because it's like 90% or so of the input that we get that makes it to our brain through our senses, about 90% or so of that comes through the eyes. So our eyes are constantly taking in input all day long, and they get fatigued. And sometimes that's what leads to the energy crash or the lack of motivation and the energy fatigue that we have. Some of the other things we could do, work with like our vestibular system, such as just doing things with like moving our head in different directions, like side to side, keeping the eyes fixed on a target, up, down, and in diagonals. Keeping our eyes fixed on a target while our head is moving can help with the vestibular system. And then there's other things where we can do, sometimes we need something like movement type drills that work on our, what we call our proprioception. And these are things like we can do like compass type lunges, just doing little mini lunges in different directions that will help actually target the movement, the proprioception, as well as a little bit with our vestibular system. Or we can do even things with like our breathing, such as I mentioned breathing drills before, like bag breathing can help, especially if we're struggling with like energy. So if it's like a lack of energy, it can help to get more oxygen to the cells of your body where energy is produced as well. So these are just some things. I know I didn't get deep into the details of what they are, but if you're interested in knowing more about any of these drills in particular, just leave a comment below, and then I can do another video about that. But hopefully this gives you an idea of what some of the things you can do, some of the tools that you can use to help to manage nervous system fatigue. That, if you are struggling with your motivation and your consistency with your workouts, with your nutrition, it's not just that you're being lazy or that you're unmotivated. I find that, the vast majority of clients that I worked with, and myself included, weren't lazy, weren't unmotivated, and actually wanted their goals very, very badly, but they really struggled with nervous system fatigue. So hopefully this helps, and I invite you to try some of these tools out. The best bet is to try them one at a time. Find a way that you can assess a particular movement, do a drill, and then reassess the movement. And if the movement improves, that's one that you should keep. So again, try these out, see what you think, and leave a comment below. Let me know which ones worked best for you. And I hope that helps. And until next time, take care. I'll talk to you then.